Happy Tuesday. I am Marcy Stoudt, and on behalf of my sister, Alison Nissen, we want to welcome you to our live conversation. And if you aren't available on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock East Coast time, you can always subscribe to our YouTube channel and hear any of our past episodes. Today, we are lucky enough to have Olenka Cullinan, who believes if you wait too long for the perfect moment to begin, you will miss out on opportunities for growth. And Olenka, her she empowers women around the world to overcome fears, expand on their passion, and gain accountability from other women. Olenka, we're so thrilled you're here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for the introduction. I'm very excited.
Well, I love the work that you do, and I'd love to just jump right in and ask, I understand you have a new group called Live for Living, and can you just share a little insight, starting kind of with this group so we understand your work, and then we can ask a lot more questions after that.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, the group came out of pandemic. That's not any more strange to any of us at this point. We're so used to this very new environment we're in. But what happened is my general, sort of direction is I always want to help women empower themselves, step into their power, gain momentum. But most importantly, I really believe that there is that elusive balance, right? There is that balance between living your life and then building your business and being the partner and doing all the things we do as women. We wear so many hats. So Live for Living really was designed for women who've been in their careers for maybe 3 to 5 years and are looking to find that purpose back, but also gain their time back. Because a lot of times what happens when we grow our careers, we sort of lose joy out of life. We sort of lose our why out of our lives, and we really start focusing so one-sidedly on what we are building. But in reality, life is for living. And I believe that wholeheartedly, that if you position things correctly, if you really stay the course, you can have both. You can have the balance and joy and purpose, but then you can also build extraordinary businesses.
And when you're building this group, can we start with what your vision of the culture of the group? How does it work, and how do people, engage and get the results that, you can achieve?
Yeah, so this is not my first group. I've been building groups for a while now. I have a lower tier group that's called the Next Six Figures Bootcamp, that's designed for women who are just starting out in their journeys and maybe want to build the business, or maybe they have a side hustle that they want to grow into the business. But my vision for Live for Living specifically came from how many times women at a higher level, once they, have established careers, how often do they feel alone in a vacuum? And I wanted to find a group and build a group where they feel included, they feel very safe. I model a lot of safe, vulnerable behaviors in this particular group, just because of the level of, expertise and knowledge, and also the level of really professional engagements. We actually have our members sign NDAs because we get very, very vulnerable in our groups. I model a lot of behaviors. I have experts from my network who come in and teach these women different, strategies and opportunities, and give them various tips. But so when I build my groups, for this particular group, it's very vetted. So we interview every single person to make sure that there is an alignment in the group, that every group brings very high value. If it's a lower tier group, then it's open. It's a little bit more open in terms of entrance. But again, we have a very specific way that we conduct our groups, the way that women share, because it needs to be productive. I love emotions. I'm a woman myself, so I will cry with you and eat a tub of ice cream, but then I'll ask you what you're going to do about it. So my groups in particular are very action driven. So our goal is really to get you from A to point B, and for you to have that blueprint. So that's what we focus on.
You have the blueprint of how to get from A to B. So how do you start with the blueprint?
Yeah, and honestly, this is where I would say sometimes I see women and men both shy away from starting, right? Because we tend to overthink everything. We tend to sit in this analysis paralysis where everything has to be color coded just fine, and everything has to line up, and the program has to be perfect, and we have to have a perfect website and the marketing. A lot of you are nodding and smiling. I appreciate it. I know we relate, and you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. But really, the simplicity is where it all lies. The blueprint for me is simplicity. I always say, women shy away from sales, which is really the backbone of any business. But truly, sales are just adding value. You don't have to you don't have to sell anything. If you show people how you add value to their life, that's your sale. So my blueprint is very simple. You design a concept or product or program that you want to create. You don't over design it. I'm a big fan of going to market with real, minimal valuable products. I mean, as long as you have something. I have a lot of clients that I work with and a lot of women I work with sell from social media. They don't even have websites. They sell from all kinds of applications. So to me, it's designing that basic program but your most important thing is really figuring out why, because money is not going to be the driving factor. Because something goes wrong, the money is out of the window. You're not going to care about sales when things get hard. So you really need to be sure of why you're doing a certain thing. So the blueprint is really why are you doing something, how you're going to add value to people, and then how many people you can talk, which is numbers. So if you just stick with those three really basic things, and I know it sounds very simple, but I want to caution you, simple is not easy, right? That's where the difference lies, because some things that seem very, very simple are not going to be easy, because figuring out your audience and who exactly you want to serve with what is going to take some time, and it's going to take some real conversations, not superficial conversations. What I see at the beginning, especially, a lot of times we get so excited about delivering our product or service, we deliver it from our perspective, but it's never about you. Because if you're not delivering it to them, how they want to see it, with their language, with their needs, with their fears, if your client does not feel that you're talking inside of their head, you're probably not doing a good job delivering that message to them or that product to them. And then the next step, right, like I said, it's figuring out that value, how you're going to deliver that value to them. How do they know that you're solving their problem? And then the last piece is that actually picking up the phone or getting on the emails and getting those numbers dialed in. You should know how many calls or how many emails it's going to take you to touch someone. Like I can tell you in my program, I know that with men, I don't work with a lot of men. I have a few, mostly on the consulting side. It takes us 3 to 5 touches to sell to a man. It takes us 7 to 9 touches to sell to a woman, because women take a lot longer to make that initial jump, but then they're way more eager at the beginning to get going. So I'm a big fan of numbers.
That's great. Well, I love your blueprint because yes, it's simple, although I think we could probably have about 5 to 10 conversations to kind of break down each one. Can you share a little bit? So when you're talking about how a lot of times our thought process around sales is often misconstrued, and that the importance is really around, stop selling, but adding value instead. How do you navigate that balance as an entrepreneur where you want to give value, but you also don't always want to give your services away for free? So knowing when to charge and when you're adding value, if you could kind of share your perspective on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, one, I don't believe in giving anything away for free, really. There has to be some kind of energy exchange, right? It's either value exchange in terms of connections, in terms of support, in terms of engagement. So you always having some kind of energy exchange, and it needs to be very transparent. So I personally tell women all the time, I don't care if you do it for free or you charge them, the exchange needs to happen. You have to know what exactly you are getting out of it and what you are bringing to that other person, the group, the organization, whatever it is. And thank you. I love the energy exchange too. And then, the second piece is, yes, when you are charging, and this is where a lot of times as women, we have this like, that stomach pit and I can't do it. And how could I? I mean, you have to take the fastest way to kind of overcome that fear and that insecurity and that limited belief, from my knowledge, is to take the attention away from you. You are not going to sell you. You're going to sell the program, the course, the value. So if I know that I can look at a business and my secret sauce is I will look at your numbers or I will look at your daily activities, and I'm not bragging, but I can pretty close usually by someone's calendar tell what their monthly income is just based on their calendar. If it's true, if it's not made up where everything is perfect, but they're not doing it, that's my secret sauce. I can, because I've done it, and whether I've done it with one woman or 1,000, my confidence level is going to stay pretty close. And because of that, I'm not going to have issues selling that value. So the fastest pathway to success, no matter how counterintuitive, it seems, is actually going to sell that one person. It's getting that one client, one service, one product out there, even if it's maybe discounted, even if it's maybe free and you go present in a group, but the energy exchange is that you have some kind of sale at the end, you know, where you talking about your service or product, but because you actually, like, your mind does not know the difference, whether you just really presented for $5,000 or you presented thinking that your program is worth $5,000. The mind has no difference. It has no way of knowing that. But because you're living through these experiences, that's how that habit develops. And that's how that value, the internal value that you're delivering, is going to develop from that.
All right, I'm totally on board with what you're saying. So I always like to go back to the idea that there are times in my life I feel super shy. And I was taught if I focus on the other person, I can get over my shyness, because then it's about them, it's not about me. Which totally, when you make that little shift, it's like, wow, all of a sudden I can talk to anybody and it's not a big deal.
Yep.
So what I'm hearing you say is that I can do the same thing, and as long as there's a service exchange and I'm adding value, that the sale doesn't, the sale itself is less important in the hierarchy of the exchange. So it's that energy exchange.
100%.
And so wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Because I mean, Alison, to what you just said, if you keep doing this, and that's where I tell women all the time, if you keep doing that same process of that energy exchange and living in your mind and your body sensations for that experience, at one point or another, you're going to hit your sale. It's just a game of numbers. So you just have to get used to that sensation, that experience, that process inside of your mind, inside of your body, because most of the time our fear hits us on emotional level and on a body level. Like, it's not that we don't have skills. It's not that we can't talk. It's not that we can't put sentences together. We have all these things. I meet women who have the best programs in the world. Like, they have the most magnificent knowledge set of skills, and they're not selling them because they're sitting in that body sensation, because they just haven't given themselves enough opportunities to live through that experience.
Olenka, what would be the first thing someone should do as they're beginning with their program? Let's suppose I've developed this great program. Now I need to go market it. So I'm not going to call it selling. I'm going to go add value.
Absolutely.
What's the first thing to do?
Yes. Start doing it with, don't do it with your friends and family. First of all, I'm going to caution you there, because one, they love you, so they're going to have a skewed version of it. Second of all, they're going to be extra critical, because people who love us the most are going to be the most critical of things we do. It's not, it's not on purpose. It's just coming from the heart, as they say, but it doesn't always translate in words. So I would say, I would caution you from that. The easiest thing, in my opinion, and what I suggest with my clients, you go start looking for people who you think are your ideal audience, whether it's online groups, whether it's communities, whether it's, maybe organizations. And then you craft your pitch per se, or whatever, and it can be horrible. I don't know. I mean, first one is probably not going to be great. But what you need to start doing is really not easy, but super simple, is you have to start verbalizing that pitch, whether it's posting online and recording that first video that's going to feel super awkward, but that's okay. Like, I have women all the time who are like, I can't post live videos. That's okay. You don't have to post it live. Go record it. Like, I have a client right now who recorded a video 9 times before she was able to post it in the group. And that's okay. She sweated for it 9 times, but guess what? That's not a wasted time. That's 9 times she gets to live through that experience where her brain now understands that's how it works. Unfortunately, you cannot outread this. You cannot out-listen. You cannot out-YouTube watch this. All of it has to be lived through by your body, by your real life experiences. And that's how you start getting really good at it.
I remember when Alice and I first started, like 3 years ago. So we both had our own, stories of what we wanted to do in our next phase of life. And then finally we said, why don't we do something together? So we had this idea, which manifests into this live conversation. But at the time we weren't too sure what we want to do. So we just used to call each other like 5, 6, 7 times a day and practice our elevator pitch.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I wish we kind of recorded those, Alison, because they would be probably pretty comical. Or like the first 9, the first 8, not as good as they are now.
Absolutely. I keep a videotape of videotape. I just dated myself, but that's okay. Of my very first speaking engagement I did in college. And it's short of atrocious in my opinion now, but at that point I was so excited about it. It was my first big presentation, my first big keynote, but I keep it around and I periodically watch it just to remind myself that this is the beginning of anything, you know. And that's why I always tell women, I don't care if you've been in your careers 10 years, 5 years, or you're just starting, anything new you're going to do is going to feel as if you're just starting, and that's okay. Don't think just because you're a master in your career and now you're launching a side hustle or a new business or a new product, it's going to come with that. You're going to have a set of skills again, but the newness of that experience is still going to be there.
Yeah. And how you talked about tracking numbers and things like that. So let's say she's confident in the value she gives. She's got a great kind of little introduction and enough that she's ready to, open up the doors for other people. Mm-hmm. What do you recommend for tracking or writing down goals, like the big picture goals? Any techniques you like to share?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of numbers in terms of impact. So I'll share a super personal story. When I ran my first company, before I started First, the company I start now, we were working with teenagers, which was even more dear and near because these are young kids, you meet them, they're adorable, you want to do everything for them. And so I had a super hard time selling, obviously, because I want to help everybody. I was like a biggest street hugger and I'm like, how do we, impact the most kids? So since that experience, I had a huge argument with my accountant because he was like, I need you to give me numbers. I need to create projections. I need to know what sales we're tracking for, all these things. And I said, I refuse to do this. I am going to create an impact. And every year on a big whiteboard, and I still do this, I have a big calendar that I buy in Staples. It's $10, I'm pretty sure. I write a number of impact I want to create. Do I want to impact 1,000 women this year? Do I want to impact 10 women this year? Do I want to impact 30 women this year? This is my number. If you impact enough people and you see that number of value you want to deliver, your money is going to come. I mean, you know how much your programs cost. You're not new to that. That's already inside of you. You already designed it properly. You will know your numbers in terms of money piece, but you need to go and create the impact you want to do. So you write down your impact. So I know how many women I want to run through the bootcamp in my year, how many women I want to run through the Live for Living group, how many one-on-one clients I want to create. I personally don't even look at how much money it's going to make me, because if I hit these numbers, and that's, again, it takes pressure off from sales. Because I already know that if I have, 200 women go through the bootcamp, I'm going to hit the number I need to hit. And if I have, 30 women going through Live for Living group, I'm going to hit the numbers I wish to reach. So that's one of the first tracking things I do. Second of all, you don't need CRMs. I get so much pushback from women, I don't have all the fancy software and I can't afford the email software. You know what? I ran my company out of Excel spreadsheets and I'm the worst person in Excel ever. Like, you can't imagine how bad I am. I have a girlfriend who is the best with Excel. I actually pay her sometimes to do it for me still. But all I did, I would make a number of calls a week. And after doing, let's say my goal was to make 10 calls a week. If you do this for 2-3 weeks and you're not getting any results, it's one of two things. You either don't have enough skills, so you need to brush up on how you act on the phone. What do you need to do better? Or it could be that the audience you're reaching out is wrong. But I'm a big believer of not pivoting for at least 30 days. So whatever I'm experimenting with in numbers, we don't pivot for 30 days. So for 30 days, we do X amount of calls, send out X amount of emails, and then we literally just put them in Excel spreadsheet and we see how many responses did you get? What type of responses were they? Out of the ones that responded to the first email, how many follow-ups did you send? How many calls did you make? If you made 10 calls and 2 of them picked up, and then you followed up with those 2, and we just literally write it all down. Again, it's super simple. It's tedious, if anything, and it's kind of annoying. But once you get that traction and once you know how it works, Now you're not upset anymore when you made 10 calls and nothing happened, because you know when you make 15 calls, you're going to get 4 people to respond. Out of 4 people, you're going to have 2 that are probably going to talk to you, and hopefully you're going to have 1 as a potential client, and with the other ones you're going to do follow-up. And I mean, you can be fairly loose with that, especially at the beginning. I mean, if you didn't track something, it's really not that big of a deal, but you at least definitely need to look at the emails you send out and the calls you're making and how many follow-ups you're doing afterwards.
That's awesome. So I'm going to bridge a little bit what we were talking about before the show started and now. So you are, you're very successful. You've got some great groups, some great, recommendations and everything like that. So there's a perception that we have that once you get to a certain level, it's just the referrals keep coming in, the social media keeps kind of closing the sales. Can you talk to us a little bit about who, I guess you were just on Treehouse and you were
Clubhouse. Yeah,
Treehouse.
we were on Clubhouse. Yeah,
Clubhouse.
So absolutely. Yeah, this doesn't change. And I can tell you, if I stop doing the outreach that I'm doing, I am getting a fair amount of referrals at this point, but if I stop doing the outreach, if I stop doing the marketing, if I stop going to communities that I go to and constantly collaborating and meeting other women, that referral will trickle down pretty quickly. And, no brand is immune to new brands coming in. And the attention span is very short, and you have to be in the marketplace, and you have to keep consistently showing up for your clients, for your potential audiences. So you are meeting new audiences. But I was just recently on the Clubhouse, and we had Grant Cardone, who obviously so many of us admire, and we think it's so easy. I mean, you're Grant Cardone, you should post one word and everybody should be rushing into your events and to buy your books and your products. But the numbers he shared is that to fill out the arena for his last event of 10,000 people, they send out like 1.7 million emails outside of the marketing campaign, outside of all the other advertising they did. So for us, it was obviously astounding to hear that, but what he shared is really that doesn't matter what level you're in, it's always going to be the game of numbers. And if you just consistently keep showing up for your audience, enough of that is going to start resonating with you, and eventually will become either your client or your referral source, or somehow will be a part of your program or service.
All right. So never stop selling.
Never stop selling. Can't take that vacation, huh? Not from selling.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, I think it's that again, right? If we just, for me right now, sharing what I do is more part of a lifestyle, right? And you guys are doing a great job, because I've seen both of your social media. I've seen Revel Coach social media. You do a great job of just showing what are you bringing with your platform? What is it? What is your mission, right? Why are you inspiring so many women? Why am I here talking? Because obviously everybody buys into your mission, into your purpose, and what you guys are trying to do for so many other women. And so to me, this is where lies that, that subtle difference. You either are living for living, and it becomes a part of your lifestyle to where you're no longer adapting Revel Coach or your guys's, platform and mission and vision to it, because it's now part of your lifestyle. It's so integrated in who you are, where you don't need to sell. I bet you both of you could be sitting in an airport talking to someone, meeting another woman, telling her all about it, and she'd be like, tell me more, I want to know. And that's pretty much exactly how I operate and teach, all my clients I work with to operate. But that's again where your why and the purpose are going to matter so much, because it's really hard to sell shoes if you don't care about shoes,
And I love how you said it, because when you start talking about the numbers game, I grew up in my corporate career was a lot of sales leadership. So I get the numbers game, but then when you started talking about it from your point of view as a coach, I started thinking about the sales, and I could feel my face get flushed, like, wow, that feels like a lot of work, until you started talking about how it just becomes integrated. So Alison and I as sisters, it really, as an entrepreneur, you have a choice on how you're going to enjoy your day. And so for us, prioritizing joy is really fun. So we do love just talking about it, because we're really having a lot of fun, building this together. And so you kind of got my blood pressure going, and then feeling like kind of good.
I caught you and let you down.
You got me. You brought me the parachute.
I love it.
So where we have a shared mission, I'd love your insight on this. Just, Revel Coach, we do believe in, connecting with other women, building a community, helping, like celebrating and trying to, help them. If our network can help another entrepreneur, we love that. And I know like half your coaching is with women kind of on mindset, confidence building, and things like that. Can you share more about your work and how you help somebody build their confidence?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I just believe that women, a lot of times, whether it's corporate or entrepreneurship, a lot of times women, women's differences in the marketplace are not necessarily celebrated. I believe that majority of times they either ignored or they're trying to be fit into this male world. And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's just the way I describe it. I mean, majority of our corporate structure is built for males. I mean, it's no secret, and we all know that. So rather than appreciating the differences and recognizing them, I feel that a lot of times women are like being pushed to be a bro. I joke about this, don't be a bro, because we bring so many other things to the table. And one of the things that women are really good with are emotions, and that nurturing nature that we have, and ability to express our emotional states and going into that vulnerability. But unfortunately, because we are a lot of times brought, whether it's entrepreneurial world or corporate world, we're brought into that very male-driven culture. We learn to suppress the emotional state. We learn to suppress that, that nurturing state. And what happens, it actually brings down the confidence level, because we're constantly worried. We're constantly watching ourselves, like, I don't want to come off too emotional or too feminine or too passionate or whatever. And so, but I'm very privileged. I've been able to speak all across the globe. I've done over 138 conferences just last year, right before COVID hit. And so what I've noticed, which is very, very interesting to me, is that with males, oftentimes men are very, they're very dominant at the beginning of a career and the beginning of a business building. And then when it comes time to delegating and working with teams, they're not as proficient. With women, they're a little bit more shy at the beginning. And that's where the confidence a lot of times is lacking. But once you get them to working with teams, they just thrive, because they're used to family units. They're used to, being tribal and being communal. So it's a very interesting nuance that I've noticed. But to me, a lot of what I do with my coaching for that exact reason is building that early stage confidence, because there are very few women that I meet who truly don't have the skills. Most of them have the knowledge, most of them have the skills, but because they're trying to take their unique differences and fit them into that very male-driven paradigm, they bring that confidence down in themselves, and they sit in this almost analysis paralysis fear mentality. And so that's why I joke that about 45, it's only partially a joke, about 45% of what I do is actually serve as a cheerleader, right? I'm somewhere between cheerleader and mom. And and all I teach women to do to each other is really that, saying that you got this, and I'm proud of you, and I see you, and you can pick yourself back up, and you can do it. Because a lot of times that's exactly what they need. And if you give them that little push, it just skyrockets.
So Olenka, how would you advise someone? For example, I have a stepdaughter who's recently reached mid-level in her executive career. And, so she started off, it was a quiet just because she had assignments and tasks. And now she's mid-level, she's running meetings, but, she's still feeling her way. So what advice would you have for her to push her shoulders back, put her chin up, be a little more confident?
Yes. But I also would tell her, kind of sit with your unique differences and see what you really bring to that table, right? Because most of the time, I will tell you right now, just from, again, experience of working with hundreds of women, she's probably way more intuitive than some of these colleagues at the table who have been there for years. So don't be afraid to lean into your intuition. Look at some other skills and traits you have that the males or the other people at the table don't have, and really hone in on them, really lead almost with that. If you have your intuition, if you are better at delegating, if you know that you you know how kind of smooth the situation's over. Women are really good with that. They are way faster and better. No offense to any man, but most of the time women are faster and better at any conflict resolution, and they can mitigate circumstances a lot faster. So have her really sit with that. A lot of times as women, we really don't take that opportunity to really look inward, sit with yourself and say, what do I have? What do I bring to the table as a woman from my perspective that these people don't have? And once you pinpoint these 2 or 3 things, if you really start leaning into them, she'll be mind blown how quickly she can start using that in advancing, in dealing with people and dealing with situations, and people notice that.
I cannot wait to share that information with her. She's going to be super excited. I always try to offer some advice, but I'm from the world of academia, and so I don't have quite the same skill set as the executives. However, Olenka, I have been enjoying this conversation so much. Thank you everyone for stopping by. If you're on Facebook Live, if you're on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe so that you can catch us again next time when we have another amazing speaker. But on behalf of Marcy Stoudt and me, Alison Nissen, and Revel Coach, we are so excited that Olenka Cullinan has been able to join us today. If you are here live, and we invite everyone to come and join us live, you just have to go to our website, revelcoach.com, to figure that out. And if you are here live, we invite you to stay and listen to the continued after conversation.